Just a frivolous video today. Really just doing this video because I don't feel like typing out my thoughts on this matter. Just a continuation of a commenting back and forth under another video. And as you can see from the title, well, it's not exactly a topic of the highest importance to the survival of our people. Perhaps there's something to be shaved off, some little micron sliver, which presents something in a slightly different light than someone has been used to hearing about it in. But that's the case with everything. That's the case with some god-awful Saturday Night Live sketch. M. Dare, that's what I'll call you because I have no idea really how to pronounce your handle. We're each accusing the other one of not quite understanding. You think that I can't understand this little bit about Heather has two mommies and daddy's roommate at all, and I think that you get one major part of it, but you're missing a little piece. Obviously, we can both understand that yes, this is picking on the, let's say certain average Joe types, at least they were average, well, let's say 20 years ago, you know, when this bit was crafted, that there are a fair amount of men who will present the homosexuality thing in some sort of, at least implying some sort of objective standard, talking about abominations or disgusting or just wrong, implying some sort of objective standard to that, while at the same time, well, they really dig viewing female homosexuality, assuming the females are sufficiently physically attractive. Okay, so we both get that side of the joke. But I think you miss another part of the joke. You act as if Hicks's statement that man-on-man sex is disgusting is merely only a jab at what you call homophobes. And of course, you're calling people homophobic for not wanting to see that shit or having a personal feeling of revulsion when either viewing that shit or contemplating that shit. And I note that you did not answer my charge that you probably don't do the same to homosexuals who find the opposite sex physically revolting. There's a certain directed, politically dictated direction that your critique goes to, isn't there? And it's almost like you know what not to address when I call you on certain aspects of your bullshit. Now, if this is the only Bill Hicks piece you have heard that deals at all with questions of sexuality, maybe I could give you a pass for that. And maybe this is all you've heard. Maybe you haven't heard other pieces. But I refer you to Bill Hicks's bit on the motel room porno flicks, where he stated this, I don't know, I've never bought a fucking sex flick in a motel room, and the one motel room I was in, I think it was actually called a hotel, but man, it was a wino hotel, man, and that place you didn't pay for the porno flicks were just on channel 2, and they were totally hardcore, you know, so he's talking about like upper class motels where you can buy these porno flicks during the time that he's talking about, the early 90s or so. And apparently they were cut out to basically be softcore shit, like shit you could see on fucking HBO or whatever. But what he focused on in his bit was this. You have a movie called Slutty Stewardesses, and yet they cut out all the hardcore good stuff, all the womanly hardcore nudity and penetration. What you end up with is a movie that 90% of it features some dude's hairy ass bobbing up and down, because that's what they can show you to not be totally ultra hardcore and evil, right? As he said. And sort of the punchline to the joke is, hey, listen, if you had called the goddamn flick hairy bobbing man ass, I would have never fucking watched the thing. You know, you fuckers had false advertisement on that shit. It was supposed to be the pink labia of Tiffany, but it was just some dude's hairy ass on the screen all the goddamn time. It seems to me that we should take this as an accurate portrayal of his actual mindset, of the things he's actually critiquing. That he actually doesn't want to see hairy bobbing man ass. That we can take that as sort of a truth. And when we see that, combined with this bit, we see that yes, he is not only talking about certain hypocrisies within certain people that we might call conservatives, but he is also talking about the duality of the nature, the outsidedness of the nature of the true liberal man. Or perhaps I should say the truly free-thinking man. The man who does not allow his thoughts and feelings to be dictated by social consensus, no matter which party of social consensus that is. And that there is an aspect to this bit. Because good bits, just like good poetry, just like good songs, will say 2 or 3 different things with the same words. And perhaps this is something that is beyond you. I would not be surprised. So when he states that he finds Daddy's roommate personally repugnant, the idea of 2 men fucking each other, that he actually probably does find that repulsive. That he enjoys the female form. He does not like the male form. You're missing one aspect of the bit, man. And that's what I say. Now, apparently, you're actually older than I am, if your given age is to be believed. The reason I assumed you were younger was simply because this idea, this conflation of personal revulsion to certain sexual practices with, quote, phobia, or perhaps it would be better described as, I don't even know, because, well, phobia is the word that is used actually because it's the idea that, oh yeah, they actually fear this stuff, and that's why they claim to dislike it, because they fear it. And that is, that in itself is actually, it's a claim that has, again, very politicized connotation. Basically, it's the way that the politically correct crowd gets to call people pussies, instead of calling them, like, just honest people who don't like certain things. You get to put this idea of phobic, which has now become a combination of hate and fear. And in fact, a lot of us have been taught from early on, if we were paying attention to the memes out there, that, oh, hate always derives from fear. Well, that's not true. But you see, even the softy, touchy-feely liberals, they play that same game of basically calling their opponents, yes, haters, but also weak. You're a weak person because you hate. Because that means you really fear. This is something which should be noted. Why are these supposedly anti-violence, anti-hate people, anti-defamation people constantly spewing words of personal emasculization? This is supposed to be the crew of, feminism and embrace your feminine side, but, oh, if you don't, why don't you? Well, it's because you're a pussy little bitch, right? Consider that for a bit. I assumed you were younger because I see this assumed conflation more often in younger people. Say the people who are, say, 25 and younger now. Although there are certainly plenty of people my own age who make that conflation. But, it's always this ramping up thing. And the thing is, we have been ramping up with these assumptions of culture dictated by the master from central controlling points. The education system is a big part of this. Mass media is a big part of this too. Look into how many top-level people actually control the operations of a huge portion of the media which is actually broadcast. I mean, it's pretty fucking despicable, Gannett owns papers in almost every fucking sector of the U.S. Oh, well, depending on how far down you pare the sector, it's every sector, but even when you get down to local papers, Gannett owns a lot of them. Or there's Clear Channel, we're familiar with that. And of course there's the syndicated programs that are sold. Well, goddamn, I mean, you're the fucking leftist douchebag, you're the one who's supposed to know about all this. And yet you don't notice the messages that come across. Those are the messages that you believe. Now, you never said you assumed equality between divergent breeding populations. This is moving on to the next topic. Thing is that there are, of course, constellations of assumptions. Like the assumption that personal revulsion about particular sexual acts is very highly correlated with assumptions of equality between divergent breeding populations. And in fact, I was giving that initially as an example of the dogma that one learns from people who are claimed to be, going under the scientific ideas. Because the secular ideas, secularism equals scientificism. I don't want to say scientism because that's, that's gotten its own sort of thing, which sort of branches off, but scientificism, or believing that science is good, but they don't hold to scientific standards, do they? We can see that. I mean, one great example is where it's admitted that Stephen Jay Gould just basically lied about some very easily empirically verifiable things, and yet Stephen Jay Gould is still held in higher esteem than the person he was trying to defame through his slanderous, absolutely false claims. So what matters more is the conclusion and not actual evidence that actually comes through in things that can reasonably be called a scientific methodology. Political methodology is the thing that is claimed to be, quote, scientific or rational or logical. All these douchebags have their own ways of saying it over and over. It's an important aspect of the indoctrination. It has nothing immediately to do with the question of homosexuality. You're assuming things. You're trying to fill in blanks because sort of your camera just has a very low pixel rate. So low that, you can't tell the difference between a snake and a rope. And you make assumptions and you fill in your blind spots because you have so many blind spots. And you craft those spots around there, and you can't understand the things that are actually being said. Just address the things that are actually being said. But you want to make assumptions, and that's a problem. Now here is one important point, though. You say that all, you call them social and ethnic groups. Okay, let's be honest, what you really mean are biological breeding groups. The largest of those are races, and then we compare down to ethnic groups that also share certain biological trends, but you say that they're all converging. Well, that's a very believable claim. If you just asked me, I'd say, with no knowledge, I'd say that, yeah, that's probably true because, the world has shrunk, basically. We have a lot more movement between place to place, so the breeding is probably converging, But you know what the actual empirical evidence shows is that it's not. It's actually not. Even today, according to actual empirical data, as opposed to, just guessing based upon certain assumptions I have and pulling things out of my butt based upon my own mental models, the actual empirical data says that no, the different races are actually diverging even today in this shrunken world we live in. Check your assumptions at the door, bitch. Now somehow you still haven't gotten, this is funny, because I've made so many comments that would seem to me to be a very obvious indication of where I'm coming from on this question. And in fact, even the way you phrased the question is a sign that you don't even understand what you're talking about. You ask if I believe in a creator, blind or otherwise. Well, okay, the whole idea of the blind watchmaker is that there actually isn't a creator, that the, quote, creator, and from a functional standpoint, yeah, there's a creator because there are things that have not been in the past which are now. According to our best models of cosmology, 14 billion years ago, there could not have possibly been sentient life. Assuming certain things, within the realms of biological understanding of what is necessary for sentience. There could not have possibly been sentient life 14 billion years ago. But there is sentient life today. And so yes, the blind watchmaker is the, quote, blind forces of creation, the blind, the action of the forces upon matter, or if you want to take a more hardcore materialist stance, you would say that what we call forces are actually just a shorthand for what matter does. These are two different ways of looking at it. So matter does these certain things, so matter is its own creator, that it creates the things that matter later becomes. The plasma of 14.7 billion years ago eventually became me. Let's just leave that up as another little intelligence test for you. Do you get it now, where I come on the question of creators, of gods? Do you fucking get it yet? Well, hey, like I said, just a silly little video about inane crap. And there it ends.